Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. You might recognize him, you may not, but very happy to welcome back Rob Sylvan to the event space. Rob, how you doing today?
Good, Scott. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much to our sponsors for this event, Adobe, as always, for setting this up with Rob. We love having him here. He's going to be talking today about using Lightroom Classic and Lightroom on the go. This is part one of a two-part series, so stay tuned. We've got part two coming up. I believe it's going to be September 17th, we said?
I think 21st?
21st. You know
it
what?
Is September.
I'll come back and I'll confirm that date.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
We'll get it finalized, and we'll get that. You just keep checking back on the event space page, and we'll have it posted, the definitive date shortly. That's how you can, make sure you're staying up to date. But for all of those who are joining us here, if you do have any questions related to Lightroom Classic or Lightroom on the go, and you want Rob to address those, feel free to drop them in. If you're joining us here on Zoom, use the Q&A tab. Otherwise, on Vimeo live stream Facebook, you can use the comment section, and we'll make sure to get them over to Rob. He loves questions, so send them in. Otherwise, thanks again to our sponsors, Adobe. Rob, I'm going to hand it over to you because I know you've got a ton of stuff to hit us with.
Right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Scott. All right, let's jump in. Let me start by sharing my screen. All right, hopefully you see that now. So all of these tabs here are articles that I've written that relate to this topic. And so I put them all together right here in a blog post on my lightroomers.com website. So if you go there, it's the most recent one right today. I just put it up there. Even says right there today. Won't be true tomorrow, but the links will be there. So all these links are these guys right here. So I'm going to show you the things here, but if you're like, oh, wait, how do you do that? Is there written instructions? That's what all these are. I also put a couple links to an adapter we'll talk about. You may probably know about it, but I just wanted to throw those in there as well. I even put a link to the event space so you can find out when part two is. I put the 21st. Maybe I'm right. Maybe Scott's right. We'll find we'll find out.
You're right, Rob. You're right. It's the 21st. Today's the 17th. You see, I've got my dates all out of whack. Rob's
Perfect.
right.
All right.
Always refer to Rob.
Nice. All right. So I pulled it out of somewhere. All right. So you can go to this link once that link's live and get that on there. So one link that's not on there, and I just want to talk about this up front. You can just Google this, Adobe compare plans. And this is just a little chart, because whenever we talk about Lightroom Classic, there's a little bit of like, which version are you talking about? So I want to clarify that out of the gate, because I will be talking about both versions in this context of on the go. And what does on the go mean? Well, I think about it as when you're not in your primary place where you do your work. That could be home, that could be an office, could be a studio as your primary place. And on the go could be you're going on vacation. Wouldn't that be nice? You're going travel for work, or maybe you're just going across town to meet with a client and you want to bring or have some availability of a subset of your work to show and talk to that client. So on the go can be any of those things or more, basically when you're not sitting down at your primary workstation and you want to be able to access your work. So how do we make that happen? And I'm going to talk about it today in the context of how you do it with Lightroom Classic, just within that domain itself. And we're going to kind of wrap up talking about how you can do that just with the Lightroom. So what does those plans look like? So there's the photography plan, which is probably the most popular one, most well-known one. It's been around for really a very long time now. I'm going to say probably going on 10 years. And that's the $9.99 a month. With that plan, you get all of these applications. You get the Lightroom app. You only get 20 gigabytes of cloud storage. So we'll refer back to that aspect. But primarily, people who have this plan are interested in using Lightroom Classic and Photoshop. And so that little blue circle around my cursor is just so you can track my cursor a little bit better. And so we're going to talk about Lightroom Classic first, and then we'll talk about how to do this with just Lightroom. And so if you have this plan, you can do everything I'm going to show you today. If you have this plan, which is the same plan, except you get 1 terabyte of cloud storage and it costs an additional $10 a month, you can do all the same things I'm going to show you today. You just have more cloud storage at your disposal. Now, if you don't use Lightroom Classic and you want to just use the Lightroom only, then there's a plan for that too. And that is just called the Lightroom plan. And with that, you get the cloud-based version of Lightroom, which you can install on all your devices. And that is also $9.99 a month. And you get 1 terabyte of cloud storage. There are some other features related to that. But for our purposes today, we're going to look at Lightroom Classic and Lightroom when you're on the go. All right, so let's jump over to Lightroom Classic to start. And let me just clear some of these Zoom things out of my way. All right, so this is Lightroom Classic. And I currently am on a Mac desktop computer. Certainly could be a laptop, could be Windows. So operating system doesn't matter. I'm just saying, clarifying that because talking about Lightroom Classic, that only exists on either a Mac computer or a Windows computer. So whichever of those are, whether it's a laptop or desktop, imagine yourself, that's your primary workstation. And this is where I'm at. And so I have here, looking at the folders panel, these are some photos taken recently this year, and they're stored on my internal hard drive. I also have an external hard drive that contains a lot more photos, and obviously it's a portable drive, so I could take it on the go with me if I so chose to do so. But let's, for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to try to demonstrate an on-the-go workflow, but I'm not going to switch computers in the middle of this Zoom stream because that would make things really complicated. So we're going to use a little imagination when I say that I'm on my desktop. That's where I'm at now. At some point, we're going to be on my laptop, and we'll show what that workflow looks like there. So let's say you want to start off with your primary catalog. You're getting ready to go somewhere. Now, where you're going and why might determine what you bring with you. So let's say that I'm going on vacation. I'm going off to Maine, and I want to bring along with me this last batch of photos that I took because I want to work on editing them while I'm on the go, while I'm away on vacation. I won't have access to this internal drive of my desktop computer, so I want to bring this with me. Now, the trick in Lightroom Classic to bring along not just the photos, but any work you may have done on them is to not just export the photos, but actually export an entire catalog. So how do we know that some work was done on these? Well, in grid view here, these little icons actually mean something. They actually tell us some information. So this little plus minus one says this has photo develop adjustments. It's been cropped. It's also in a collection. If I click on this little icon, it tells me what collection it happens to be in. If I click on the crop, it takes me to the crop tool, and this one will take me to the develop module. So they're not only telling me things about these photos, but they're even clickable buttons to jump into editing those things. So if I wanted to bring this batch of photos with me on my trip, I can include them in a catalog export. Now, we'll go through that workflow, but I'll just say that if you're just going on a trip and you're not bringing some photos along with you from your primary catalog, you don't need to do this step. You can just install Lightroom Classic on your machine that you're taking with you. We'll assume it's a laptop. I did see a picture of somebody with an iMac on a plane, but I don't think you're going to do that. So assuming you're taking your laptop, you can install Lightroom Classic on your laptop and just have a catalog that is specific to that device that you take with you. So how do we do that? Well, if you are subscribed to the plan, let me open up my Adobe Application Manager. Hey, there's the Lightroom app. Let's come back over to Lightroom Classic, not to confuse things. So we look at all the apps that are included in your plan, all right? With this Adobe Application Manager, you can install this application on as many devices as you own, computers in this case, Mac or Windows. And you can install whatever the software that's included in your subscription on that device as well. The key is you can only be logged into 2 different devices at the same time. So let's just say I have this desktop computer that we're sitting on, and I have a laptop that I'm taking with me on my trip. I can install Lightroom Classic on this device and install it on my desktop, and that's totally fine and not any problem. I can open them up and they'll work just fine. If I had a third laptop, maybe I wanted to have that. Maybe this was a different spec'd out machine or something like that. And I could install Lightroom Classic on this laptop as well. But when I started to log into it or open it, it would say you're already logged into 2 devices. Which one do you want to log out of? And I can do that right from my third device. And then I'd go, well, I just log out of my other laptop. I'm not using it. And when I go back to that laptop, I would encounter that same screen and I could log out of the other one. So there is some flexibility, even with Lightroom Classic, installing it on multiple devices. If you only have 2 machines, not a problem at all. If you only have 1 machine, totally not a problem at all, but it's much harder to go on the go unless it's a laptop. So I've already installed Lightroom Classic on my laptop that I'm taking with me on this trip. And on that machine, I might have a catalog that has nothing in it. Maybe it's a brand new catalog. That's fine. So if you're not bringing any work with you, you can skip this step. But I think this is an important step to know, not just because of an on-the-go workflow type of situation, but there are other situations where you might just want to export out a subset of your catalog for some other purpose. It could be to archive it, could be to send it to someone else over Dropbox or something so that they could work on it. Maybe you have someone who's doing editing work for you and you want to give them a catalog that they can open up and work on, give you the catalog back, and then you can ingest that catalog back into your machine. So this is a really useful technique to know as a Lightroom Classic user. Just think about whatever the scenario is that makes the most sense to your workflow. The mechanics of it is going to be the same. So you can see here I have a collection that has the same name as the folder. And so there's the folder, there's the collection. If I want to bring this with me, I want to export that out as a catalog. So before I go through that, I might say, well, I've got a little bit of time here. What edits have I done here that I want to bring? So up to the basic panel, hasn't been too much done. All right, I've got a camera profile on there, a little bit of some adjustments here for texture and clarity and vibrant saturation, white balance. Not too much, maybe a lens correction. Something kind of cool, unrelated to this, but check out the wings on this hummingbird. Isn't that cool? This was all taken within the span of a quarter of a second, all 50 of these frames. So I want to take those with me so I can kind of keep working on it and playing with that. So there's a few basic edits on it. What if I wanted to take advantage of the subject detection in the masking and apply some additional edits just to the hummingbird in all 50 of these photos? Could I do that one at a time? Yeah, I could. But could I just select them all and take advantage of one of the new presets that's in Lightroom Classic? If I come over here to the quick develop panel, so notice I'm in the library module, not even in the develop module. And I'm going to come over to the preset drop-down menu here. And there's this relatively new preset groups that were added. One is called Adaptive Subject. One is called Adaptive Sky. I think they were added in the June release this year. And in this case, we'll go Subject. And within the Subject group, there are these 6 presets here with, pop, warm pop, soft, cool, soft, vibrant, and glow. So we can get some sense of what they're trying to do. We don't know the settings if you've never used them before. But let's say I want to make that hummingbird pop off and warm it up a little bit. Warm pop sounds like it might do just that. So with all those photos selected here in the library module, I'm just going to select that preset. And what it's going to do is it's going to apply a mask based on the subject within each photo with all those different wing positions. it's going to hopefully find that subject, apply a mask to it, and then apply the settings included in this warm pop preset to every photo. So every photo, every hummingbird will have the same settings, but even though the subject is in a slightly different position in every photo, if the AI here is up to the task, it should be able to find it. It's pretty well isolated, and apply that mask all in one fell swoop. Right, so here I am on my desktop. I'm doing this last bit of work. I'm getting ready to head out the door. So once this is done, I'm going to export this catalog out so I can take it with me on the road. All right, so took me a little bit of time, 35 seconds or so, much faster than doing them one at a time. And if I press the D key to jump over to develop and open up the masking, there it is, right? So there's the preset, there's the mask. Here are the settings within that preset. And if I just turn off the visibility of that, there's the cool hummingbird, there's the warm hummingbird, right? So the warm pop, and if I just go to some other random moment here, all right, there's the mask, all right? So it adapted for every photo and found that little sucker and made a mask for it and applied the same settings that are in that preset. So that's really cool, right? To be able to do some batch functionality like that when you're in a rush and trying to get out the door. Now, could I do that when I get to my, yeah, I could do that later. I just want to show you. So we have some edits that are coming along for the ride. Now, when you think about what do you want to take with you, obviously the edits apply to the photo. That's important in this scenario. The photos themselves, that could be very important, right? And there's a couple options around that we'll talk about here in a minute. But if you just say have installed Lightroom Classic on your laptop for the first time, it'll just have the default preset. So if I jump back over to the develop module here, all right, oops. In the preset panel, all right, all of these in this section here came along when you install Lightroom Classic. You'll have all of those there. These presets up here, though, these are custom ones that I've either created myself or have downloaded from the internet. Maybe I purchased, or maybe I got from someone or something like that. So these are all custom presets in here. If I just install Lightroom Classic on my laptop computer for the first time, I'm not going to have any of these presets. Presets in Lightroom Classic do not sync across other devices. So we would have to take some action to bring those presets along if we wanted to have them available on our mobile machine. Now, jumping back over to library module, what are some other bits of things that we might want to have with us on our mobile workstation so that we have them available? Now, if you're a keyword person, your keyword list, this exists within the catalog itself, right? And whether you use lots of keywords or no keywords at all, it's something to consider. If you don't use them at all, the consideration is don't worry about it. You're not using them. You're not going to use them on your vacation. That's for damn sure. So we'll just worry about this. I'll show you how to do it with the assumption that someone out there might actually want to have their same keyword list available on their other machine. Because the beauty of when you export a catalog and then down the road, import that catalog back into your main catalog, is that's the only way within the Lightroom Classic realm to send all the information that possibly exists about that photo to some other device and then bring it all back again. Now you might be thinking, well, we could select these photos and use the metadata, save metadata to files, and that would write from the catalog to each photo. And that is true. However, there are some pieces of information that don't get written to the photo's XMP metadata space. One of those things is regular collection membership. Is that the end of the world? In this case, no, just one. They're all in one collection. That's easy to recreate. So depending on your situation, that could be important to you. Virtual copies don't get written to XMP metadata. And flags, pick flags, reject flags don't get written to metadata. So if you use those types of things in your workflow and you want to ensure that you're bringing them all along for the ride and then bringing them back again, you want to use the catalog export and import function. If all you're really concerned about are the edits, the latest and greatest edits, you can use this save metadata files, and it will do just that. It will write all the final version of the edits. Now, if you wanted to be able to have access to all the history steps, so maybe you were playing around with a preset like I just did, and you wanted to be able to go back to an earlier point in the history, well, that's not written to metadata either. That only exists in a catalog. So just some things to keep in mind in that process. All right, so we talked about presets, keywords. What are some other little bits of things that you might want to have along for the ride? So if I go up to my Lightroom Classic preferences, if I was on a Windows computer, this menu, preferences, would be under the edit menu. And I come over here to presets, and I come down here to show all other Lightroom presets. This is going to open up a Finder window this would be the same on Windows, except it would be Windows Explorer, obviously. And it would open to a folder called Lightroom. And within here are other things that I might find useful. If I do file renaming, I might want to have my file name templates along for the ride. If I, let's see, do a metadata preset, maybe on import, I might want to have that along for the ride. So there are a few pieces of templates that you might want to bring along with you for the ride as well, or at least have available on your mobile machine, so that when you're doing stuff and you're going to rename, you can use the same file name conventions that you rename when you're on your at-home workplace workstation. So to do that, you can just copy these individual folders on over to another drive. So I'm going to just leave this Finder window open, and let's just bring this over to here. We'll come back to that guy in a little bit. While we're in the preferences, you also want to take note, if you have a raw default that you've set, instead of using Adobe default, you probably want to customize that on your mobile workstation as well, so that you're, keeping things the same on your computer. And there is I didn't include a link to this. Maybe I'll go back and add it into the blog because I wasn't thinking about it. But you can click this link right here and go to Adobe's tutorial on it. But if you want to go to my tutorial on it, go over Lightroom Killer Tips and just search for raw defaults. And I have a tutorial on how and why you might want to take advantage of this. I think it's really important to do so. You can look through. Most people don't customize their preferences too much more than that, but it might be worth clicking through the different tabs on your workstation so that you can set up your preferences the same way on your other workstation. All right, so we got templates, we got keywords, we got presets. Let's put it all together and take this onto our other machine. So how to do that? Well, to export a catalog, there's actually a couple ways to do it. I'll show you just at a high level what some of them are. So you can just go up to the file menu, and there is an export as catalog command. Now this one, you can certainly use. I would tend to use this one if I didn't have a folder or a collection already created and just want to maybe send the entire catalog out or something like that. But this, in this case, could work just fine because it's just going to show me these 50 photos, and I can build on that from here. I'm going to cancel out of this and just show you what I think is a more, I don't know, user-controlled way. If it's just a single folder you're bringing along for the ride, you can right-click on that folder, and you'll see there's an export this folder as a catalog, and it's going to look just like that other dialog I just popped up there. A couple different options because you're already bringing that together. Let's say I had photos that were across various different folders and I wanted to bring those along. Then I could go down to a collection. Now this collection is just the same photos are in that folder, but use your imagination. Maybe these photos were from different folders and I wanted to bring them along regardless of what folder they originated from. I can right click on a collection and choose export this collection as a catalog. Right, so 3 different ways to do that. My preference is to go the collection route, because that way you can, before you go, put all the photos you want to bring in a single collection, regardless of what other collections they might belong to, regardless of what other folders they're stored in, and just take that collection in a nice little package as a catalog. All right, so here are our options, and let's just talk about what each of those might be. Now, notice that I only had 1 photo selected here before I did this. It's defaulting to say, export a catalog with 50 photos, all right? So it doesn't matter how many photos I have here had selected or not. I could have had them all selected or 1, and it didn't matter because I chose the export the collection. And so that's where that 50 comes from. All right, what about these other options? Export negative files. That's Lightroom lingo for creating copies of each of the source photos and storing them alongside this exported catalog in this nice little package. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you, while you're traveling, while you're away, you wanted to be able to edit the full resolution photo, maybe so that you can zoom in and deal with noise reduction. Or maybe you wanted to be able to send a copy to an external editor like Photoshop or some other third-party app to do additional pixel-based editing. In those situations, you would want to definitely include the negative files. Maybe you're going to print when you got to the location. Maybe you want to just be able to export off copies from the full res at your destination. Those are all really important and good reasons why you would check the box to export negative files. However, that obviously is going to make that package a little bit bigger, because now you're including copies of all the included photos. In this case, only 50, but you know that could be much larger based on your needs. What if you didn't need to have the full resolution photos? Why? Because you're not going to use an external editor. You're not going to export off copies from the full resolution photos. You're not going to go to Photoshop. For all those reasons, you don't need the full res photos. Well, in that case, you could make a smaller package and check the box to build or include, if they're already created, smart previews. And that way, this would be a catalog file, a preview cache, a regular preview cache, and a smart preview cache. And you could edit just fine in the develop module, as long as you didn't need to go outside of Lightroom Classic. You could work very well with this smaller exported catalog. My personal preference is, if size isn't important in terms of the storage media that you're using, then just include negative files, just in case when you get to your destination, you go, I wish I had a full res copy. Who needs that just because you're trying to save space or time? So give yourself enough time and include the export negative files. So if you do that, do you need to build or include smart previews? You don't need to. They could be useful. You can always create them later. So I wouldn't say that was required to do. Where I had just done that edit, I don't know if all my previews were updated in time. So I might say, okay, let me just make sure all the previews are updated. And I'll just say to build some smart previews as part of the package. I could do that. As long as I'm including the negative files, then I can always make the previews later. So that's what these options are for, and why you might weigh out which ones to include. Do you need to do that? Let's just make this a little bit smaller and faster. I won't include or build smart previews from this. I'll include any available previews, but if I don't have all of them, I can always make them later on in the catalog. So I made my decisions there. Let's give this a name, and we'll just call this something clever like travel catalog. And I'm going to put it on my desktop just for the moment, because I wanted to show you something. But obviously that's not going to help me go anywhere. I'm leaving it on my desktop. So in your workflow, could you just send this to an external hard drive? Yeah, you could do that. Let's see. So I've got here we go. My portable hard drive. I could just put it right on here. All right. And I will do that in a moment, but I want to start off here just so we can look inside this package, and then we'll put it over on the external hard drive. So I'm exporting out a catalog, and for that 50 photos, even though I included copies of the negative files, it didn't take too long. All right. Now let's jump over here to this first screen. Let's just get rid of this guy. All right. So there's a folder called Travel Catalog on my desktop. And what's inside of this? Well, I've got the previews. So these were the previews that were already built, just the regular previews. There's not any preview cache called Smart Previews because I unchecked that box. So there are no Smart Previews here. This is the actual catalog file. And this just contains the information about the photos. And it's, as you can see, it's not very large at all. This travel catalog LRCat -data, this is where any masks and using the AI generated masks are stored in here. And that's not very big, even though it's just those 50 masks in there. And then here, using the same folder structure as the photos were originally. So on in my hard drive itself, that's exactly the same folder structure. It's just that this folder, imported photos, is now inside my travel catalog folder that's sitting on my desktop. So this little package is what I want to bring with me on my trip as I go on my merry way. Now, beyond that, what are some other things that I might want to have accessible? I talked about these things, right? So maybe my file name templates and my metadata presets are things I want to have available so that I can keep those things consistent on my laptop. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste those on over here. Now, what about my presets that I want to bring those over? I mentioned those. So if I come back over to the develop module and open up preset panel, these ones are all going to be there. Not worry about those. But any of these custom ones that I want to bring along, I can right click, choose export group. I'll put that right in this little package. It's going to compress them all of the presets in that group into the zip file and put it in that location. And I won't go through all of it, but I would just repeat that same process for all of the preset groups that I want to have available to me. And you can see it's even using the name of that group. All right, so now I've got the zip file of that preset group, this preset group. Imagine I have all the other ones in there too. Got my file name templates and my metadata presets. Most importantly, the catalog. So this folder is ready to go. And so if I want to bring that on my portable drive, I'll just put that on my portable drive. And it's copying it over. All right. So altogether, it's about 2 gigs. Majority of that are the photos included in there. We don't need this window anymore. So while that's happening, so use your imagination. Woo, this finished. I disconnected this drive. I physically pulled it off my desktop computer. I plugged it into my laptop computer. And now, lo and behold, look, we're on my laptop. Just like that. Woo, we're on my laptop. And pretend you don't see that because it's not there. And so now I'm on my laptop and I open up my external hard drive. I go to my travel catalog and I'm just going to double click on that catalog file and open it up. Now that wouldn't appear because I forgot to close Lightroom Classic on my desktop. Somehow we magically appeared on my desktop for a second there. Nope, but we're definitely on my laptop now and I'm away in Maine on vacation. And so woohoo, I'm on vacation, but I wanted to bring these photos along. So if I look inside this travel catalog, there's the folder that they're in. These are copies. How do I know that for sure? Well, if I right click on this and choose show in Finder, look, it's on my portable hard drive. So I've completely copied everything that's important over and I've taken it with me on my vacation. If I look here in the collections panel, there's that same collection. Now, interestingly to note, when you export a catalog like that, it also exported the collection set structure of my main catalog that this came from. Now, these are going to be empty because none of the the photos that are included in this catalog export only exist in this one collection. But just so you know, if you had a much larger group of photos that you were bringing that may have been included in multiple different collections, any collection that those photos that you brought that they belong to would also appear along here. And if they were in a collection set structure, they would still show up in that structure, which is pretty cool. But in addition to that, your smart collections that you may have created also come along for the ride, even though they have no bearing, in this case, that one. But I have this catalog dashboard that I call, is just a collection set full of other collection sets, full of smart collections that are just based on some rule. All right, so recently edited has edits, true. We know that these photos have edits, and the edit date is in the last 30 days. So that's recent, right? Recently enough. And so any smart collections that you had, they're going to come along for the ride. And that could be useful for you as you go off on your merry way. Now, I did include in the list of resources here, I have a tutorial that is on exporting and importing smart collections. If for some reason you have a smart collection that didn't make it, or you actually want to export a smart collection, just the rules, not the actual contents of it, you can export and import the rules that make up a smart collection. And so there's a tutorial on that as well. All right, so back to my laptop. I am on vacation, but now I've got a little downtime and I want to go and edit these photos. So if I go over to the develop module here and look at a mask and go, well, I like the result of that, but I wish that preset also opened up the shadows a little more. So how about I'll just open up the shadows and make sure you have the mask selected when you do that. Open up the shadows a little bit, and maybe I want it even a little bit touch warmer. All right, so I've made a couple little tweaks to that mask. How am I going to do that to all of the other photos in this set? So if I just do Command and Control A, I select them all. Let's turn off auto sync. I could have had auto sync on to begin with. And I'm going to choose check none, and I can sync the changes that I made to the mask as well. And I can synchronize those changes across. And it's going to say, hey, dude, you got masks on there. Are you sure you want to do this? They may be merged or replaced. So I'm going to just choose merge. I haven't seen any difference, to be honest, on what one of them does. So now I'm syncing across all those edits, and we can see this little 3 dots here is just telling me that the preview is being updated. Let's see if I just select a different photo here at random and select the mask there. We see that the shadows, the change that I made, has also updated across all the other photos in this. So I can make any changes that I want here in the develop module and sync them off. I can certainly work one off. I'm just trying to show you a couple other tips while we're doing this. Obviously, if these were all 50 unique photos, I wouldn't necessarily sync them all in the same way. All right, so now I'm also on vacation, and I'm just, I'm being lazy, and I'm just shooting some photos of sunsets and my kid and my dog and that kind of stuff. And I want to bring those photos into this catalog so I can maybe edit them, but also so I can bring them back into my main catalog when I get home. So how do we do that? Well, that's your standard import process that you would normally do. Now, before you do that, this is where, since we brought those other little templates and things along for the ride, we want to make sure we've got those bits in place before we go and do those types of edits. So here I am on my laptop. Keep that in your mind. I'm going to go back to that Preferences tab, be under Edit on Windows. I'm going to go to that same Show All Other Lightroom Presets folder, go into this Lightroom folder, and then I would find on my portable drive in my travel catalog folder, I would just copy the contents of the file name templates folder that I brought with me from my desktop into that same folder here. Now, since we're on the same computer, it's the same, but go with me on our little journey of the imagination here. And I would do the same for any other folder that I brought along, like my metadata presets. I would put those in there as well. Now, what about my presets? How do I bring those into my other computer? Well, we do that in a slightly different way. If I go over to the develop module, I can come up to the file menu and I can choose import develop profiles and presets. And then I would just navigate to the zip file. I don't have to unzip it or do anything else. I can just select the actual zip file. And I think I could even select multiple zip files in this process and click on import, and they're already in there. So it can't do it. All items were already imported. So yeah, so if this was truly on my laptop and they didn't have them on there, this process would have just worked and I would have brought those presets in and they would have appeared here in my preset panel. So now I've got all those bits and pieces. Oh, I forgot to show you the keyword list thing. All right, but you can see here in my keyword list panel here on my laptop, there are no keywords. So if I was wanting to use my keyword list that I'd already created, I could, while I was still on my desktop computer, come over to this metadata menu and choose export keywords. And this would export out a text file of my entire keyword list in a tab delimited structure, so that when I got to, and I would copy that over to the portable drive. And now here on my laptop, I would go to import keywords and I would select that text file and it would bring it in and I'd have the same list. It's not going to apply any keywords in that process. All it does is make the list available so that when I manually keyword, I'm using the same hierarchical or even flat list that I have on my other computer. So when we get back home, I will show you the process for exporting, but that's all it is export on your home computer, get the text file, transfer it over, and then on your other destination device, import keyword, select that text file, boom, Bob's your uncle, and you'll have your keyword list. All right, so now everything is updated here on my laptop. So I would go to import, and I don't have a memory card selected. So what I'm going to do instead is just go over to my desktop. I have a folder from my vacation in Maine, and there it is, pictures of dogs, sunsets, and my kid. And I'm going to bring these in to this other catalog. All right, and this would be the same process as if I was taking off a memory card, just again, using our imagination. So I'm going to use the copy option. Add and move don't exist when you're copying, when you're importing from a memory card. So I want to copy these. Where do I want to copy them to? Well, I want to copy them to my portable drive because that's where my catalog lives. That's the drive that I'm going to, when I get home, plug into my desktop computer so I can ingest all of this information. So I'm going to go down to my portable drive. I have a parent folder called portable photos, and imported photos is the parent folder on that drive for where all my photos kind of come in underneath it. Now, before I click import here, I want to just point out that the photos that are in this catalog already follow that same structure that I have on my internal drive. On all my drives that have photos that are managed by Lightroom Classic, I have a parent folder called imported photos, and then by date underneath that, and then within each date, I've got date information and location or event information along with the date. That's my protocol. It's not the way to do it. That's just how my brain works. Do it however you do it. But what I want to point out is because I already have that imported photos folder as my parent folder, if I select the imported photos folder here, it's going to copy that over, if I remember it correctly, and create another level of imported photos underneath it. And that's an easy thing to fix. But I think instead, if I select this portable photos top folder, it won't create a new one. It'll just put them in there. Let's see if I'm right. I'm not sure, but just filing that away. And because I brought over my metadata template, I have that ready to go. That's all I'm going to worry about at this stage of the game because I also updated my raw default. So if any of these photos are raw photos, they're going to have those settings applied to them. All right, so I've got copy, I've got the destination, I have the right source. I'm going to click on import, and oh, there were some photos in there that had GPS. We'll hit enable in this catalog. That's fine. All right. So now these are the photos coming in. I think I missed. I see what I did. Okay. All right. So apparently in my haste, it's a solvable problem. But so see how let's go right here, right click on this and choose, go to folder and library. It put them in this portable photos parent folder. That's not what I really wanted to have happen. So how did that happen? Well, if I go back to the import screen and choose not the iPad, but instead my desktop. All right, so here's the issue right here that I overlooked in my haste. Organize is set to into one folder. So when I clicked on the portable photos folder, it just copied everything that was the source into the portable photos folder. What I normally do is by date, and then in that case, it would have created a date-based folder. So that's my bad for skipping over that step. So how do we fix that? Well, that's really easy to fix. If you want to keep your folder structure in the same organized way, the way you think. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click on this and choose rename. And let's say I'm on vacation right now. Clearly I'm not. 08/17, and we'll call that main. All right, so there I am on vacation. So all I did was rename the folder to that date, pretending it's today's date, and some information about it. And now what I want to do is have it live in the same structure as this guy. So I'm going to put it into that. So I'm just using Lightroom Classic as I normally would here on my laptop to maintain that folder structure and naming convention that I like to have, even if I mess up on import. Sometimes, that happens. Easy to fix. All right, so now I have these photos, and let's say for the sake of argument, I did some edits and whatever else I did, I had keywords, all that kind of stuff. So the important part here is it's time to go home. All right, so I need to pack this up and have it ready to open up on my desktop. So all I'm going to do is quit out of Lightroom Classic because I'm shutting down my laptop here. And I am shutting things down. And here I am now, I'm home, and whoop, I'm on my desktop computer. I plugged in that portable drive from my trip, all right? And there in the same folder that it's been in is my travel catalog, and the imported photos that I brought along with me are there. The edits that I made while I was traveling are in here. And the new photos that I brought along that I imported are stored in the same place that I want to have them in when I get home. So now that I'm home, I will just open up my regular main Lightroom Classic catalog. And here I am back where I left off, no change. So how can I bring in the edits that I made to these photos as well as my new photos? So this is where I'm going to go up to the file menu and choose import from another catalog. I'm going to go onto my external hard drive and choose my travel catalog folder. And what I want to select is the catalog itself, not the photos, not anything else, just the LRCAT file. Click choose. And now I'm going to get a dialog that looks kind of like the import dialog of old. It's actually what the original import dialog used to look like. And so what do we see here? What can we make happen? All right, so looking at my travel catalog, why aren't you seeing my new photos? All right, you love in a demo when things don't always, maybe I know why. Because I looked at the same catalog that was on my hard drive, on my desktop computer, not the one on my laptop. So I did that on purpose so I can make sure you do the same thing. So I'm going to go to import from another catalog and actually make sure that I choose my portable drive and that same folder of the same name that confused me before. And now I am selecting the correct catalog. When things don't go wrong, when things don't go right, usually it's user error. All right. So you just have to think, where did I mess up? In this case, that's where I messed up. Now I see my new photos. Historically, when people ask me a question that starts with, I opened up a catalog and didn't see the photos, the folder, the edits, the collection, whatever, it wasn't in that catalog. The answer I always give is, it was the wrong catalog, because that's usually the case. It's very easy to open the wrong catalog because maybe it has the same name or a similar name, or you copied it from one location to the other and you opened the one in the original location instead of the new one. So it's a really easy mistake to make. Obviously, I just made it. We all do. So just if you catch yourself in a situation where you open a catalog and it doesn't contain important work that you know was just in there, file this away. Look for the right catalog. That's probably the case. In all my experience, that's always the case. Even if you think that's not possible, somehow it happens. Trust me. All right, so here we are now with the right catalog. And what do we see? Well, we see there are new photos, the ones that I imported, and then there's changed existing photos, the 50 that I brought along and made those changes while I was traveling. So we have two choices here to make. First is with new photos. This is just like on the regular import dialog, you're importing some new photos. What do you want to do with them? All right. You could add new photos to catalog without moving. So if you didn't want to copy them or move them to a new location at this time, you could choose add the new photos to the catalog. They'll be in the new catalog. They'll just be in the same place they lived in before. And that might be fine, depending on how you're working. You could choose don't import new photos if that made sense in your workflow. It's not in my workflow here. So we're going to choose copy new photos to a new location and import. Import is always about ingesting the data about the photos. It doesn't always, or doesn't mean at all, copying or moving the photos to a new location. So if we're going to copy them to a new location, where do we want to do that? Well, I tend to, in my workflow, put photos on my internal drive when I'm working on them. And then when I'm done, I move them using Lightroom Classic over to my external hard drive. So for this moment in time, I'm going to put them on my internal drive just because that's what I normally do with new photos. So in my pictures folder, I have my imported photos parent folder there. And so that's where I want them to go. All right. So that's where my new photos are, because that's where my other ones are as well. Now, next, what are we going to do with the changes? What are options? Well, we could say nothing. Maybe I was just playing around on vacation. I don't even want to bring those edits in. It was just me messing around. So I could choose not to bring those changes in. I could, and this is what I will choose, bring in any metadata and develop settings only. So that means metadata would be like keywords, flags, star ratings, color labels. That's metadata. Develop settings speaks for itself. Metadata, develop settings, and negative files. Why would we need negative files? Well, if in this case, what went out were just raw files. I just made edits within Lightroom Classic, which are in Lightroom Classic is just instructions saved to the catalog. So there was no change to the actual negative files because Lightroom never changes original raw files. So when would you use this option? Well, if I was sending copies to, say, Photoshop and making changes there, and maybe along, when I was first going on my trip, maybe some of these weren't just raw files, but I sent along some TIFF or PSD files, and I made edits in Photoshop to those outside of Lightroom, then in those cases, bringing any changed metadata, any changed negative files might also make sense. It depends on your situation. So in my situation, I didn't change a pixel in any of my photos. So metadata and develop settings only is all I need. If I was unsure about my edits that I made, and I was like, well, maybe I want to keep some of my original, I could choose to preserve the current settings on these as a virtual copy, meaning I would now have not 50 photos in this collection, I would now have 100, still only 50 source files, but now I've got two different sets of instructions. One's a virtual copy, one's the original. And it sounds like a good safety catch, but then you just got to deal with all those virtual copies. So unless you really, 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 really want to have 50 virtual copies, don't choose this option because then you just have to clean up your mess afterwards. So I'm just going to overwrite. These are I'm going with these settings on this. So once I've got this all straight and I've double checked everything here, if when you first open this up, you see this, don't panic, just check this box here. And if it helps you to see the thumbnails. Now I choose import. So now all the information is being ingested into this catalog, and any photos that are new are going to also be copied to the location that I chose. And once that's done, that folder will appear in the folders panel, and I'll have all my work back where I started from. So that's kind of the Lightroom Classic on the go, soup to nuts, all inclusive workflow with a lot of little extras thrown in there. So if you look back at those resources on my lightroomers.com, you'll have more information than I even covered in here about some of those little odds and ends in there. So here's what I was trying to avoid before. So my parent structure here, imported photos. There's my new folder. It created a new imported photos down in the bottom. It's like, oh, now I've got to clean that up. So all I have to do is drag that up in, put it in this 2022 folder. It's literally moving it on the drive. And now this guy and this guy are empty, and I can just delete those. And now I'm back. Got all my new photos, got my changed. If I go over to the develop module, go to my mask, right? And there's my shadow change and anything else that I did. So all the work went along for the ride. So are any questions that came up on that before? I know I'm running right up against the end of my time here, but the Lightroom one's going to be real fast. So
go for it, Rob. You finish up and we'll get to questions after that.
Right. So that's the Lightroom Classic on the go workflow. Now, in our part 2 session, we're going to look at how to use both Lightroom Classic and Lightroom on the go. And I'm just going to talk about Lightroom here for a second here. So this is the Lightroom app on my Windows, on my Mac, all right? And in this case, it looks very different from Lightroom Classic because it's a totally different interface. I'm not going to go through all the differences in the interface, but I just want to point out that the benefit of the Lightroom app for on the go is that all of the source photos are stored in the cloud. So here I am on my Mac looking at the Lightroom interface, and I've got 18,000 photos accessible in here. All right. If I switch over to my iPad, so here's my iPad on that's connected here just so you can see it. So I have 18,000 photos accessible. And so here on my iPad, I can start editing anywhere with any access to any of these 18,000 photos because they're all stored in the cloud wherever I happen to be. And that makes an on-the-go workflow really, really flexible. So I also have it on my phone, right? So I have the same, if I opened up my phone on here, it would look just like this. So if I'm using my phone while I'm on vacation taking pictures, it's really easy to have those automatically even added to my Lightroom catalog here. And they get uploaded to the cloud full resolution. And then I have access to them in the whole Lightroom world. So if I didn't use Lightroom Classic at all, this is a huge benefit for someone who uses multiple devices, maybe travels, maybe sometimes is on their phone, sometimes is on a tablet, sometimes is on a computer. And you just don't want to mess around with everything that I just showed you. And it's all there. Not only are all the photos actually there, let's just switch back over to here. But any edits that I make in here are synced across to all my devices. And if I come over to the edit panel and open up the preset panel, in the Lightroom world, your presets sync across all your devices. So you don't have to do anything to ingest those. anywhere. They're just brought, they're already there. You create a preset in this application. Eventually that preset's going to show up on your phone or on your tablet, and you're ready to go. If I come over to my preferences here, import, I can set one very simple import metadata thing that's going to be applied to any photos I import from into a Lightroom app. And I can also set up a raw default, and that will be the same on any device that I have. So this is a real huge benefit for someone who likes to be flexible in what device they're working with at a time. The editing tools are going to be the same as in Lightroom Classic. At this point in time, I want to say it's almost entirely the same. The interface is a little bit different. Some of the labels are slightly named differently, but the same engine is under the hood and the same set of tools are basically in there. So it makes that workflow really easy. I also have a link on that on my Lightroomers blog to the dongles that I use. So if I'm using my phone, I have a Lightning to SD card reader that I can plug in and import photos from an SD card right into the Lightroom app to go right up to the cloud. And then they'll be available when I open up my computer when I get home. They're all good. They're all in the cloud. If I'm using my iPad Pro USB-C, there's a USB-C to SD card reader that I can use to ingest photos shot from a DSLR or mirrorless camera very easily. Or the other thing that I do, if you shoot, depending on your camera brand, there's different ways you can transfer files from your camera directly into the cloud. So on a Canon camera, I have my camera configured to upload wirelessly, just using Wi-Fi right to image.canon. And then from image.canon, it automatically dumps them right into Lightroom. So there's so many ways to bring your photos into the Lightroom cloud. And then once they're in the cloud, they're available on all your devices. So it's a super easy, fast, no frills, no extra export, import, catalog stuff. So that's a huge win there. So next time when we come back, I'll show you how you can use the two together to have what I think is the best of both worlds, and what I do and what I use, so that you can have a similar experience. Just like I showed you for your desktop and your laptop using Lightroom Classic, you might want to have a similar experience whether you're using Lightroom here in your computer, Lightroom on your iPad, Lightroom on your phone, or Lightroom Classic, wherever you might happen to be. So any questions that I can address now, and then we'll leave on that super note to pick up next time, which will be the 21st of September. Right. So just to reinforce how wrong I was, and how correct Rob was. The 21st of September, because the 17th is a Saturday, and you know that B&H is not open on a Saturday. That is true. That is what we know. That's the good news. So I guess kind of in that vein, we'll start with the questions that kind of are probably maybe we might get to a little bit in part 2, but kind of bridge that. Charles is joining us on Vimeo. Hey Charles, what's going on? Long time no see. Thanks for joining us. When you export as a collection and then re-import into the non-travel machine, do the files sync to their original folders? Yeah. So in this example, I had these hummingbird photos are in a folder, correct? And I have them also in a collection of the same name. It's the same photo no matter where I look at it. And in my example of exporting the catalog, I brought the source photos and all the edits into that travel catalog. All the changes I made got imported into this catalog. So no matter where I look at that photo, whether I'm looking at it here in a collection or if I'm looking at it in a folder, it's the same photo, the same edits. I wouldn't say it's syncing, it's just saving. As far as Lightroom Classic is concerned, think of it as a database. Every photo has a record. In that record is all the edits, all the metadata, flags, color labels, keywords, and then the location to where that photo was stored, as far as that catalog is concerned. So all that information is just being kept in that record, and then that record is being updated. Maybe you could say it's being synced, but I try to think of syncing in my mind just when you're going to the cloud, just to differentiate there. But
Awesome.
We're probably saying the same thing.
Great. Now, Sydney, kind of in that same kind of vein, is asking, when copying negative files from your portable drive to your home hard drive, does it just copy changed files or all the files? As well, if all the files, is there any risk to introducing errors that could affect file readability?
Good question. So in my example here, the only photos, source photos, negative files that were copied were new photos, because the new photos didn't exist on my desktop computer when we got home. So it just copied them over as same as if I was copying them from a memory card. So yes, you can, if you have failing hardware, which is usually where corruption comes in, was failing hardware, whether you're importing from a memory card or importing a catalog, that's where write errors could occur. But there's no greater danger doing it this way than just because if the hardware is failing, the hardware is failing. So in this case, knock on wood, the portable hard drive that I'm using, if that had a problem, that would be a problem no matter what I was doing. This process is just a way to bring along the photos and copy them to a new location, as well as all the information stored in the catalog at the same time. Now, for these Hummingbird photos, the negative files, even though I took them with me, I didn't copy them back because they already existed on this computer. All that came in as relates to the Hummingbird photos were the edits that I made in the develop module. That's it. If I had also applied keywords, those would have come in. If I had flagged, those would have come in. But the actual source photos, they're not being overwritten or anything like that because there's no need. Nothing changed in the source photos.
Great. And we'll end with one that I had thrown it out there, and I didn't say any question at all. So this is kind of more on the non, in line with this. But when using the spot removal tool in Lightroom Classic, are there any shortcuts to toggle, say, auto, always, selected, never, for what's visible as you're working?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. So I'm going to press the Q key. That will jump you into the spot removal tool. And so here's my spot removal panel, right? The little Band-Aid there. And here's my brush. Let's make the brush big. And I've got this big spot, this big sensor spot. It's a Hummingbird trapped inside my camera. And so I want to get rid of it. So I click and it finds a new place and gets rid of it. So what's still there? Well, that's the result of the mask. So I guess it's a little ghostly outline there. So in terms of what's visible, all right. So if we come down here to tool overlay, it's set to auto. If I want to see those handles there, if I move my cursor back onto the photo, they appear. Off goes away. Off over here, it goes away. So if I wanted to control that, I could choose right from here. Now, I could also press the H key and that will hide those overlays. And that's the same as if I was in the masking tools too, like had a linear gradient or radial gradient. Those also can get hidden. And you can also toggle those things to be on auto or always. Maybe you want to always see them even if you're messing around in the panels. So I guess the answer to that question would be to put that on auto. And it will automatically go away when you move away and then come back when you're there. So hopefully that was the question. In this case, when I'm done, I'm going to press delete and delete that and bring back the bird. Right.
Awesome. Rob, there's nothing that can stump you. Well, we'll find something.
You'll find something.
We'll find something.
All right. Very good.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you. We will definitely see you back here on the 21st. So stay tuned. Anybody who's interested in catching part 2, we will have that posted shortly on the event space page. You can check us out if you go to the B&H website and look for the event space. We're there. Just click on the link and you'll get to all our stuff. Or you could follow us on Instagram, Facebook, page event space. All that stuff works. Big thanks to our sponsor for the event, Adobe. And as always, you, the viewer, for tuning in. You allow us to bring you this wonderful content. So big thank you to you as well. That's all the time we have for today. This is another rendition of the B&H virtual event space in the books. Catch you next time.
All right, thanks, guys. And I realized that was Charles Chesler. Hey, Charles. Hope to see you
There
in
you
person
go.
sometime. All right. All right. Thanks so much, guys. See you in September.
See you in September.